5 fragrance mistakes that I'm confident every beginner makes at least one of. You go to the department store, you try out fragrances in there, you have that general department store smell, you know the generic fragrances, your uncle is giving you Hugo Boss 60% off, you feel like a great guy, you got a bargain, and you appreciate what generic men's cologne smell like. However, you veer on over to the Hermes section and you get a whiff of this fragrance called Terre d'Hermes, and you think to yourself, why does this smell so weird? Why are perfumes so different? What about this Spice Bomb or this Jean Paul Gaultier Ultra Malais? And you try all these different styles and you realize you love perfumery. And as a beginner, you're going to do the usual stuff. You're going to buy from full price retailers, you're going to buy certain brands. You're not going to understand how fragrances are made and what occasions they're made for. I'm hoping these 5 tips will help out any beginner watching this video, or if you're even more experienced, at least one of these tips should hopefully help you out as well. Let's go through them. Number 1 is not having enough variety in your collection. When you start off with fragrances, you feel that you intuitively know what's your style. You know what kind of perfumery you like. You say to yourself, I like these fresh aquatic fragrances. I'm just going to buy all the fresh aquatic fragrances I like. However, I do not recommend that because you're going to go into a trap. You end up having several of the same fragrance type in your collection. You have 10 aquatic fragrances and you end up realizing you actually like 1 or 2 particularly more than the others. What ends up happening is then you have a bunch of fragrances that are on your counter that are just gathering dust and you're not using them very well. So you end up having a very limited collection with no variability and you have wasted fragrances in there. Instead, what I recommend is to get at least 5 categories of fragrances that men should collect. So I always say these categories are the versatile category, a date/evening category, a going out partying category, office/school, and finally something that's designated for the summertime, specifically for the high heat. Tip number 2 is not buying from discounters. You have to realize as a fragrance fanatic that you do not have to pay the high prices in retail most of the time. We have our mainstream retail brands like the Sephoras or the Debenhams or the Selfridges, and then there are the discounters like Notino or Fragrance Net. Discounters give you fragrances at a cheaper price by being part of the grey market. How does that work? Are these fragrances authentic? They should be, yes, because how they work is they get these fragrances at a cheaper price in countries abroad. You know, often you'll find that goods are cheaper in different currencies and different economies. So that's what they do. They go to countries and get fragrances cheaper, import them to their domestic countries such as the US, and then because they got at a much better price, at a wholesale price usually, they can then sell you the fragrance at a cheaper price, but they should still be authentic and they're not paying for overheads like being a brick and mortar store like mainstream retailers are, or paying for the salaries of more employees, so you end up getting a lower price in the final product. My recommendations for different regions are the UK or EU, go to Notino or All Beauty. For the US and Canada, I actually recommend fragrancebuy.ca. They do fantastic discounts on really good niche fragrances. The US obviously has a lot of options as well, such as Joma Shop, Fragrance X, Fragrance Net. Australia, I'm not using this website, but I've heard one called feelingsexy.au apparently is a decent website that I found out about on Reddit, so do your research. If I have not mentioned your region for these discount websites, what I recommend is that you do your own research and go on Reddit, for example, and just find out what's a reputable, authentic discount website. I'm sure you'll find one. I can't go through every country around the world. I'm sure there's gonna be someone saying, yo, where's India? Or you missed out all of Africa. Like, bro, I'm not going to research all the regions in the world, only the ones I know about. Mistake number 3 is rushing your decision and not either trying a fragrance out or purchasing a sample. Most fragrances around the world, you can either go to a store to try it in person, or you should be able to buy it online through a sample website. Sampling a fragrance on your own skin is very important because your friend might say, okay, the fragrance smells really nice, but every single fragrance is different on everyone's skin. It reacts differently. Your skin chemistry will change a fragrance. And also you need to appreciate that different skin types also can eat up fragrances quicker. So you have different longevity depending on the individual. So you need to test scent profile and longevity on your skin. Mainstream retailers are useful in the fact that you can go and try fragrances in person. That's what they offer. But if you want to try sample decants, little small vials of expensive fragrances, I recommend ScentSplit, who do worldwide shipping. Mistake number 4 that beginners make is not knowing how to store fragrances appropriately. Fragrances in general do not want to have fluctuating conditions. They don't want fluctuations in temperature, and they don't want fluctuations in humidity either. What does that mean? The bathroom is a no-no, a big no. That's where most beginners will store their fragrances. Everyone thinks eau de toilette, eau de toilet, so put it in the toilet for some, I don't know. You see it very frequently. Do you want dry and cool conditions for your fragrances? So you don't want a radiator next to your bottle, and you don't want a fridge to store your bottles either. You ideally want something like a cupboard or a drawer where you can put your fragrances in and tuck them away, keep them out of sunlight and keep them out of fluctuating conditions. Your bedroom should generally, for example, have a nice stable temperature most of the year round. And finally, I think one that pretty much is applied to everyone at some point is not using Facebook groups, or not knowing that you can actually sell your secondhand fragrance bottles online. The best way to do this is through Facebook groups, as I mentioned. Each region around the world should have one. For example, in the UK, we have one where people will put their partially filled fragrances online for people to buy off them at a much better price. So you get access to really great fragrances. I've gotten fragrances a quarter of their usual prices, like fragrances like Tom Ford fragrances, niche fragrances. I've gotten Xerjoffs at really good prices. And that's why sometimes you see me holding up bottles where they're half full because they were previously owned by someone else. For the vast majority of people, it's a very good community. You get authentic fragrances and you don't get scammed. If you're worried about being scammed, you can use the PayPal goods and services function to carry out the transaction to make sure you can get a refund if you do not get your items sent to you. But it's very unlikely that's going to happen. For my years of doing this, it's actually, I don't think it's ever happened to me once. So yeah, it's very good. Each region needs to look up where their Facebook group is, join it, and check it out. You don't have to hold on to your old bottles that are gathering dust. Let someone else enjoy them instead of you just ignoring them. And that's my 5 tips that I think every beginner makes these mistakes. What do you guys think? Have you made any of these mistakes in the past? I know I pretty much have done all 5. And so I feel like these kind of videos really helps you out, really saves you a lot of money. Saves you a lot of money by going to discounters, making sure you try fragrances so you're not necessarily blind buying things that you won't like. And you can save money by selling your fragrances on, buying them much cheaper on Facebook groups. And you're buying fragrances that give you variety to make sure you're actually utilizing your fragrances and not just having them wasting away in the corner. And finally, of course, you're also storing them properly so they don't go off, especially top note heavy fragrances that are full of citruses, for example. They'll smell very funny if you don't store them properly. They'll all evaporate away quickly, basically. They'll all break down. What did you guys think of this video? Did you find it useful? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm gonna give you a cheeky extra secret tip. Tip number 6 is a lot of guys don't know how to apply fragrance properly, but luckily I've done a video on that which you guys can check out to make sure you're applying your fragrance in the most optimal way. Thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.